The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I was just having a grateful moment as we were starting. I want to say I'm so grateful to be here with you guys this morning and to be able to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today. We are live. Today is Wednesday. It is September 25th, 2024. We are live right now, although you might be listening to us or watching us later on, but this is when we did the show, Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. And for those of you who you might be tuning in for the first time, I'm Shannon Penrod. I identify as a proud pony. That is a parent of a neurodiverse individual. Those are the words that my son has given me and that we've agreed upon are that fit him and fit me. I know it's not boy, I know it ruffles some feathers. But you know, I think everybody has a right to identify how they want to identify. Even if that feels wrong to other people. It's like, let's all let ourselves define how we define ourselves. Anyway, don't mean to get on that soapbox because we have so many other things we're going to talk about today. And you can see the jargon of the day. I'm Carol Merrilling it the wrong way. Already we're going to ruffle some feathers and talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart. So let me tell you a little bit about today and what's going on. In just a little while, after we do the jargon of the day, we are going to be welcoming Jennifer Fitzpatrick. She is a BCBA, and we are very excited to have her on the show. She's going to be talking with us about a couple of different things, including an upcoming conference that's happening. It's a virtual conference that I want all of you to know. It's called CP-ABA. So she'll tell us how are they saying CP-ABA? How everybody has a different WABA. They all have these different ways that they say it. I want to know how they are saying it. We're going to talk about that, but also a wonderful textbook series that she has started called Essential Steps. So we'll be back with her in just a few minutes. Before that, we're going to take care of a little bit of business here. I'm going to talk with you a little bit, and then we'll do the jargon of the day. Sound good? I want you to know that we are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and our fabulous Chris Desmond will show you some other ways that you guys can be tuning in, watching the show, whether you're watching live or watching us later on in podcast or watching us on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has the video and the sound. So if you want to see what kind of a hair day I'm having, which let's face it, over the last 14 years, I have had some epically bad hair days. We don't pay for hair and makeup here, which should be evident if you're watching. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, make yourself laugh and go watch on YouTube. I'm going to tell a funny story in a second. Okay. But also, we are available as a free download wherever you get your podcasts. And I think that's super important to us here, that it be a free download wherever you are, because our mission here is to provide information and inspiration. And I feel very strongly, and I know Dr. Grampiche feels very strongly about making sure that information gets to people for free. We know that you're counting your dollars and saving it for things that you need that are absolutely critical for you or for a child that you love on the spectrum. So we want you to be able to get information for free. However, that does mean that you're going to watch ads. And I know we're all adults and we understand how that works and why that works. But some of you have said in podcast form that you'd like an option to pay a little bit to not have the ads. And so we made that possible for you. If you go to Glow, like glowworm, glow, GLOW.FM, F as in Frank and M as in Mary, right? /autism-live. And it's $5 a month. And you pay that $5 and that gives you everything that we do on the Autism Network. That's Autism Live, that's Ask Dr. Doreen, that's Stories from the Spectrum, Today's Hyperfixation, Let's Talk Movies, Let's Talk all the things. It's all of those shows, and soon we hope Autismo y Comunidad, and you will get automatically in your inbox, and you'll get them ad-free, $5 a month. It's a pretty good deal. So we appreciate that. But if you are loving getting the show for free, keep getting it for free wherever you get your podcasts. And then when the ads come, I like to do a little thing going this company paid for me, so I didn't have to. I celebrate the ads because it's like a time to pause, listen to the ad, and be thankful that you didn't have to pay for it. Love that. But remember, we're available wherever you get your podcast. If you're finding that it's difficult for you to find the podcast, please reach out to us. We show them on the screen here. We're on iHeartRadio, we're on Spotify. I mean, it's like we're everywhere. But if we're not someplace where you can get us, please let us know. We'll find a way to get it to you. So there is that pledge. I also want to say, are we able to show an All Ghouls Gala today? Oh, we are. Okay, so we have this amazing event that's coming up way too quickly. We're working hard on it, called the All Ghouls Gala. This is the 3rd annual All Ghouls Gala. Let me tell you something. This has turned into the Halloween party of the Los Angeles area for adults. And that's what it is. It's an adult fundraiser Halloween party. Costumes are mandatory. It is a star-studded event with lots of celebrities and lots of influencers. We gather to have a really good time. The ticket price is $125. Now, I know to some people it's like $125, right? But let's remember that it's an open bar. I mean, that right there. And gourmet food. Ooh, the best food. This year, we're returning to the location where we had it the first time. If you know, you know. If you don't, you're going to want to know. Really good time. And so much fun. DJ, dance floor, all kinds of activities. Everybody loves to come and do our 360 booth in their Halloween costumes. It's so much fun. And it's $125 for all of that. Now, there are also things that happen at the event where we hope you'll spend a little bit more money, but we've tried to make it as exciting as possible for you this year so that you get a benefit when you donate more. And what are we donating for? For Autism Care Today, for grants. And those grants fund whatever a family requests, but we can only fund as many grants as we have money for. So some of the things that in this year I've been hearing, because I'm not on the grant committee anymore for Autism Care Today, but I hear, people have been asking for help with assistance dogs. They've been asking for iPads. They've been asking for safety equipment. They've been asking for computers for their teenagers. They've been asking for tuition to camps and specialized programs for their kids to go to. And the big one that they've been asking for is help with copays. So many of the things that were in place, especially here in California, to help with copays has been very hindered this year for a lot of people. So people have been asking for all those things, and I'd like to be able to fund as many of those grants as possible. So I'm not a part of the grant committee anymore, but I am a part of the fundraising committee to raise money, and the All Ghouls Gala is our biggest fundraiser. So we're going to show you a clip, and I'm going to tell you this one is not necessarily for kiddos being around. So it's because it's spooky and it's a little scary, because this is a Halloween event and it's for adults, right? So have the little kiddies leave the room if you're watching this, and then I'll talk about this on the other end. But check it out, the All Ghouls Gala.
It's that time, but I don't have to tell you that. You've heard the calling and tried to bury it deep inside, but some fears can't be ignored. Everyone is going to be there. He'll be there. Probably him too. It would be just ghastly for you to miss it. Don't forget to invite a friend. Run. Don't walk to get your tickets to ACT today's 3rd annual All Ghouls Gala. Tickets on sale now at 3rd annual allghoulsgala.eventbrite.com. See you there. There will be a scream.
We love Halloween over here. I don't know if you know, but for Dr. Grant Boucher, it's like her favorite. I think she loves a bunch of other holidays as well. But we love Halloween and we love all the things about it. It's all in good fun. We don't have anybody jump scaring anybody, I think. I don't know. But we hope you'll come. We appreciate it if you buy tickets and buy them soon. It will sell out, and then people call me up and go, is there any way you can get me in? And there are rules about that. We can only have a certain number of people on the property. So get your tickets now. Don't wait. They're $125 a piece. If you're not going to be in the area, but you'd like to donate to ACT Today, there is no donation that is too small, because if you donate $5 and everybody donates $5, then we can put that together to make iPads and to make copays and things. So donate, please. And I especially love it when people buy a ticket and say, I'm not able to attend. please give this to somebody who couldn't otherwise attend. I'm very good at finding good homes for those tickets. So I'm saying hello to Huma, who is writing to us from Pakistan. And Huma wants to know if she can join the upcoming conference. And Huma, I don't see why you can't, but we'll double check that with Jennifer Fitzpatrick in just a few minutes. But it's on the internet, so I don't see why you couldn't do it. But we'll talk about that. But I'm thrilled to have you here with us this morning. So what's left to talk about is the jargon of the day. And our jargon term for today is ABA. If you guys know, in the beginning when we started the show 14 years ago, I was very, very motivated that it was critical if we're gonna do a show to support not only people on the spectrum, but those who love people on the spectrum, then we have to start talking about the jargon, because this journey is filled with jargon terms. And if you don't understand, it's like another way that you can be left out. And I certainly felt that as a parent, that they were using words to describe things that were happening in my home, things that were going on with my son, that seemed like it was critical that I knew, but I couldn't understand a word of what they were saying. And then when I would go to dictionaries and I would look it up, and it would be filled with more jargon. And then I would look up those terms and it was never ending. And I said, isn't there anybody who can just, in small bites, tell me, what does this mean and why is this important to me? So when I was first formatting the show, I said, gotta have jargon of the day, gotta be a thing. And it used to be that we would always give an actual definition, and then we would give a working definition, and I would make fun of the actual definitions. I have to say that I feel like we and a lot of other people have made inroads, and now people have gotten much better about using definitions that are user-friendly, that aren't filled with more jargon. So now we've gone into a thing where we're using Google AI to get the definition, and then talking about a second definition and have a little bit more nuance. But what's hilarious to me about this is that when we started it out, our intention really was for these segments to be for people who love individuals on the spectrum, but really parents who had not gone to college for psychology and didn't know these terms, right? And what we found out very quickly in the first year that we were doing this, we had universities writing to us saying, would you mind if we showed these clips as part of our curriculum for our students who are psychology students studying to be BCBAs, because we'd like for them to see how you take the term and put it into language that a parent would understand. I found this hilarious. I found this absolutely hilarious, but I said yes. Then I was at a conference and somebody came up to me and they said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet you. I've watched all of your, they were a BCBA now. And they said, I've watched all of your videos about jargon all through school. It was so great because the teacher, we would have to watch your videos and then write in about your hair. And I went, what? What do you mean? And then they went, oh, I gotta go. And somebody's waiting for me. And I went, no. What do you mean you had to write in about my hair? And the professor had been very clever. I used to be a college professor. This is very clever. The professor, to make sure that they had actually watched it, made them describe how crazy my hair was on each video. And listen, if you go back and look at some of the old jargon, I have got some crazy hair. My hair wasn't always white. And when my hair is longer, it's very curly and it's, I have some crazy hair. And I wasn't offended at all. I thought it was hilarious because I used to feel bad. I was like, oh, I have crazy hair today. And then I was like, oh, if my crazy hair helps somebody to learn how to tell someone else about these terms, woohoo, winning, right? Okay. Thank goodness that he thought I was going to be hysterical about that. I was hysterical, laughing. Love it, love it, love it. So anyway, here we are, still doing jargon of the day, but maybe a little bit of a different take on it. And I realized with this new take, we had not done ABA. And I love to talk about ABA because I love to talk about what ABA actually is, not what people think it is. And I like to talk about good quality ABA. So let's take a look at what Google AI says about ABA. ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. Great. A therapy that helps people with autism and other developmental disorders learn skills to live more fulfilling lives. ABA is based on the science of learning and behavior and is considered the most effective treatment for autism by the medical, psychological, and behavioral health communities. Okay, Google AI, this is amazing, except for the fact that it leaves out like all the other things that ABA is used for. I want to know what the ABA community thinks about this definition because, to my knowledge, it's still about 50% of the field of ABA is doing treatment for autism, while there's a whole other field of people that are using ABA for a lot of things. So I found that fascinating that Google AI has just decided that it's about autism. I'm just saying, I just found that fascinating. All right, let's move on to another definition and see if we like this better. Applied behavior analysis is a research-based teaching technique that takes into account the individual needs and interests of the learner. Oh, I love that. ABA teaching techniques are used in a wide variety of settings, including Fortune 500 companies and in the training of Olympic athletes. ABA is also considered the gold standard in the treatment of autism. For the win, for the win. Because I think that for me, when I'm talking to parents who don't know about ABA, and they're like, what is this ABA thing and why is my insurance offering to pay for this for my child? I like to make sure that I tell them this is based on research. It's evidence-based, right? It's about your individual child and it's a teaching technique. It's a teaching technique because everybody gets all twisty about, well, this person did that. Okay, that person did that. But for me, if you understand the basics of ABA, we are talking about something that is interested in the individual, that is about their needs, and it's a teaching technique. Now, can we use a teaching technique in a lot of different ways? Yes. But I have seen ABA used in a very elegant way to help my son build his self-esteem and learn all kinds of things. I get emotional about it because I always referred to, I'm like literally tearing up because I always referred to ABA as the miracle in my living room, because it was, because where I'm a former teacher and I was trying to teach my son things and it wasn't working because old modalities weren't working. And once the team understood and once I understood, oh, there is a way to teach my son that's specific to him, and then he can bloom and flourish and thrive. My son, who is on the dean's list and a senior in college, yes. My son, who couldn't hold a pencil, who didn't respond when you said his name, who didn't know what his name was, is a writer and a senior in college because we learned good ABA teaching techniques and applied them to him, specifically him. Yeah, I get excited about ABA. I know that there are some of you who are watching who do not have a good opinion about ABA. I also know that there are some of you who have heard horror stories about things that have happened to individuals in the name of ABA. I in no way ever want to belittle that. I wasn't there in that living room. I don't know what happened. And I'm not here to say, anything other than I'm sorry that that happened to you. But I think when you start to understand what the basics of ABA are, you begin to see that just like, there are teachers who are teaching third grade right now who are just crushing it, who are making it this amazing, educationally enriched environment, and the students are learning and amazing things are happening. And then, unfortunately, there are some people teaching in a third grade classroom right now who should not be teaching, who are not using good teaching techniques, who are being mean to their students, and I can't even think about it, but are being abusive to their students, and they should be arrested. Like, we are all adults and we know that somewhere there's a third grade teacher who should not be in that classroom. We all need to work together to protect our children and our teens and our young adults and adults from people who should not be doing any teaching techniques, right? But my point is, even though we all know as adults that there are great teachers teaching third grade, and we know that there are a few teachers who should not be, we don't say, let's forget about third grade. Let's get rid of third grade. It's not working for us, right? We have to police and make sure that people are using good teaching techniques and uplift people that are doing good things, right? So when I'm talking about ABA, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to negate if you've had a terrible experience. what I want you to know is what you should be looking for in good ABA. So all of this, Anita's with me. Yes, Anita. All of this is a great platform on which to welcome my guest today, who's Jennifer Fitzgerald, because she's here to talk with us about good ABA and about getting professionals and parents together to make sure that we're doing good ABA and what all that entails. So Jennifer is an amazing BCBA. She was someone who owned and ran an ABA provider, and she has now sold that company and refocused her life on creating textbooks and helping exactly what we're going to talk about for people to understand how to do ABA and do it at the highest level. So we're so thrilled to welcome her to the show for the first time. Jennifer, so happy to have you here.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. You have a lot of letters after your name. Like you have half the alphabet behind your name. You have MA, MED, LBA, and BCBA. So we know that you have a master. We know you have a Master of Arts. You know that tells us you have a Master's of Education. What's the LBA?
I'm a licensed behavioral analyst in 5 different states.
Okay. And then you're a board certified behavior analyst. So lots and lots of letters after your name. And you're here today, first of all, to talk with us about this conference that's coming up. It's CPABA, but how are you saying it?
It's CPABA, and it's clinical practice applied behavioral analysis. So it's focusing on the very things that you're talking about, the clinical practice side of it versus the theory.
Yeah, and I'm going to need you to explain to me and probably to some of our audience what the difference is, because that just I'm like I don't know that I necessarily understand that, but I want to understand that. But let's start by talking about the fact that this is a conference 2 days, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
October 11th and 12th.
Yeah. Yes, October 11th and 12th.
And it's all virtual.
It's all virtual. It starts at 7 a.m. Pacific time and goes at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So we have 12 hours of content on 4 different tracks, which is 48 events over for 1 day. So we have almost 90 events for 2 days.
Amazing. You got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And how where do people go to get tickets? And we'll say this again, but maybe we want to put up the main flyer, the general flyer, Chris, to show them for this event. That's the Ascent one. We'll get to that. That one, fabulous. So over 50 events, over 80 speakers. A lot of people are going to be getting continuing education credits while they're there. But
we also have a special for parents. It's $39 and they get both days. And they get it for up to 6 months to be able to go back and watch the video. So if they have things going on with children or they can only do it in the morning, we want to make sure that they can access the information. And also because unless you actually use the information right afterwards, often you forget. And so we want to give them 6 months. So like a normal treatment plan goes 6 months within the US, I guess we'd probably say that. And so we want parents to have access to the videos afterwards so that they can use them during the course of treatment.
Okay. And you mentioned you have 4 tracks. So do you pick a track when you get your ticket, or can you mix and match and go to one speaker on this track? And then when you're able to look back at the videos, are you able to look back at all of them?
Yes, absolutely. We want them to get all the information, and you can pick and choose between the tracks. However you want, you can choose your speakers or your events that way. And then afterwards, you have all 4 tracks available to you both days for the 6 months.
For $39.99, that's a great deal.
Yeah.
Like you can't go to Barnes and Noble and get most books for less than that. So that's pretty amazing. And where would they go to do that, Jennifer? Where's the site that they go to?
It's behaviorallive.com/CPABA. If you get to behaviorallive.com, you can then go to the conferences and scroll down and you'll get to us that way too. So if you forget to put the CPABA in, no problems. Just go to Behavioral Live and you can find us that way too.
Now, are you saying Behavior Live or Behavioral Live?
No, Behavior Live. Oh, thank you for correcting me. It's
Yeah.
BEHAVIOR live.com.
There
It's
we go.
behaviorlive.com.
Got it. And live, just like autism live, I always have to spell it for people because they think I'm saying life. It's live with a V as in Victor or vase,
Yes.
whatever. Okay, so pretty amazing. And we're going to talk about the different panels. But before we talk about the different panels, so you mentioned that it's, what did you say? It's like talking about, because this conference, you build it and said, this is different than everything else. You're talking about, what did you say it's the difference between?
So the difference is that we're talking about in clinical practice versus in theory, and
Okay.
that's a big deal. And we're also trying to explain to people that ABA is very diverse. There's a lot of science behind it, and how it's applied is very different in different contexts, in different settings, in different states, in different countries. I mean, so what we're trying to do is put multiple experts and clinical people on one panel and having them present and explain how it's being used in a particular context in order to help BCBAs apply it. A good example of that is, for example, if you are in one state that is more open to, let's say, certain types of practices, you would use those practices in a certain way. In another state, you couldn't, or maybe in a school setting versus a clinic setting or in a home setting. We also have a very diverse population in America. We're a melting pot. Some families and cultures and religious groups would only accept certain practices while others would not. So how does a BCBA who has been trained under a more monolithic system, how do they apply these concepts out in the clinical practice in the real world with families and with children? And how do we meet the diversity of those needs out there? And that is the kind of like the elephant in the room, because often we are seeing that when people talk about some of these practices that are maybe not the ones we would want to have occurring, are happening because BCBAs don't have any model or have any way to modify or alter these practices within the system that they're in. And therefore we start ending up into things that are happening that wouldn't necessarily be what we call best practices. Yeah. So this is a way for them to try to help bring this back together and give BCBAs a practical, a methodical method to implement in some diverse populations and diverse settings that they otherwise would not know how to do. And that's the point of behind this. And it's to try to bring all different viewpoints together and give parents, practitioners, everybody, the full spectrum of a view. Because a lot of times if you work underneath one type of BCBA or you work under one company, you only see what they are presenting. You don't see the full spectrum of views that are out there. And that also is not good, because when you go in and work with people and work with settings and families, you've got to have every tool in your toolbox. And so what we're also trying to do is kind of help give people a very clear picture of the full, as we would say, the spectrum of options that a person has when they're trying to deal with certain issues versus being only one option. And BCBAs are absolutely necessary for this, to see that, but also families and other people need to see that there are many ways in which to solve a problem. There isn't just one way. And we need to try to embrace that idea and give BCBAs a scientific method in which to implement things in environments that otherwise we would not be able to implement, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. In fact, some things just clicked into place for me because, we have a lot of families who will write in and say, well, I have a 14-year-old that has issues with this, and this, and would ABA still help, right? And to my mind, I go, well, yes, but it's going to look so different than how it would look with a 3-year-old. But then mom tells me, okay, they started therapy and they're doing it exactly how you would do it with a 3-year-old. And you go, what's the disconnect here? Because my thing always, as I learned about ABA, I pictured it. I had a friend who was an artist, and brilliant artist, and he would have this thing that was a fabric thing that he would unroll, and he could roll it up and he would tuck it under his arm and he would take it with him everywhere, right? But if he was getting ready to paint or draw or whatever, he would unroll this thing, and he had, probably 60 tools, and depending on what he was going to paint or draw, he would use a different tool. And over the time that he was an artist, he was like, oh, not only can I use this tool for this, but I can use it in a different way for something else. And that's how I always picture ABA. It's this roll of tools that it's like, okay, which tool do I want to use to teach this individual this thing. But I have seen recently that there is a little bit of a disconnect, and I've always been like, what happened? What happened? And I just realized when you were talking that when my son was getting treatment, most of the people who were BCBAs that I was dealing with at that point were people who started out in what we would call a BT role now, where they were doing direct therapy, and they were so interested in it that they grew and their craft grew, and then they went to school at night, and then they got their BCBA. But as we needed more and more BCBAs, schools started offering programs, so you could start a program and go and be a BCBA and not have spent hours on the floor playing with a 2-year-old and that many more hours doing something else with a 14-year-old. So I just sort of got it that it's like, oh, okay, maybe that's what part of the disconnect is. And you're trying to bridge that.
Absolutely. Yes. I think, and the disconnect has gotten, I think, and not to be negative by any means, but it's gotten huge, where we're seeing BCBAs who are only seeing one type of client or maybe only seeing one type of system. And the problem is that if you get a child who doesn't fit within that particular model that you've been trained on, where do you go? And when you talk about that rolling out the tools, that is exactly how someone should see ABA. ABA is a methodology, and it should be applied to the individual child and to the individual person that you're working with. And the methodology, how you actually, the vehicle you're using can be done in so many different ways. Yeah. But a lot of BCBAs don't understand that, and they haven't been mentored into that field because we have such a need, and there's a lot of issues with money and how insurance works and everything else. There's just so many things happening on this other side that it's creating this big gap between what a BCBA understands what they couldn't do and what they really need to be doing. And so you're correct. When you have a 14-year-old, how you address the 14-year-old's concerns, their needs, how you're the programming and all those things are going to be vastly different than, say, a 5-year-old. But the actual methodology should not be different. So people always say, well, I don't understand how that's possible. And I'm like, well, if you use the Cooper book, which is a great, I call it the Bible of ABA. If you use the Cooper book, they identify 5 methods to create a behavior. So stop for a minute and think about that. There's 5 behaviors, 5 things that you can do that create a behavior, a brand new behavior from scratch. Shaping, chaining. I mean, I can go through modeling, all these different things, right? So whether you're doing that with a 14-year-old or whether you're doing it with a 3-year-old, you're using the same methodology of creating that behavior. But I wouldn't be using, say, blocks with a 14-year-old to create a new behavior that I'm trying to create, but I would with a 3-year-old. So the blocks is my vehicle. That's my activity. That's my way in which I'm pushing through whatever behavior I'm trying to teach, and I'm creating it. But it has to be, but the actual behavior, the actual methodology should not be different. And that's where I think a lot of BCBAs need to have experience and see how do you take this methodology and apply it in this setting, because they've never seen it. So they don't know how to use it, and they don't know how to apply it. They don't know how to alter it for the different children and the different settings and the different issues. And so that's kind of where this conference came in, was to try to say, hey, let's bring in all these different people from all around who are doing these in all different formats in all different environments, and let's have them show how they're applying these skills and applying these methodologies in these particular areas. And that's kind of where it all came from. And it's also kind of the basis for my book, was kind of like when we wrote these series, it was kind of like, how do you help BCBAs stay within the framework of the science, but yet individualize it to each child? And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 4 years, is trying to help bridge that gap.
Well, I love that you're doing that, because that gap needs to be bridged. If we're going to keep doing quality ABA that's driven by the individual, and we're going to stay, and I'm with you on the science thing. It makes me itchy that sometimes I'm talking to someone that I know is a professional in the field of ABA, whether they're a BCBA or something else, and they'll say something that I go, is that an ABA thing or is that an insurance thing? And it's an insurance thing. Mm-hmm. And I go, when did we vote the science off in favor of the insurance thing? But I understand that insurance is such a huge part of a BCBA's day because and this insurance company only allows this and that insurance company, they make it hard. They make it hard to be a BCBA. I don't want to diss the BCBAs, but I do think that something is getting lost and the tail is sometimes wagging the dog. And I know you've got a panel that you guys are going to talk about, like how do you, what do you call it? You call it the three threats?
Triple threat. It's called a triple threat. Yeah.
And so what are the three that you guys are going to be talking about?
They're going to talk about private equity and how private equity and insurances are changing the dynamics of ABA. Primarily, I don't want to talk for John Bailey because he's huge in the industry. He's like wrote the ethics books. So I never want to speak on what he's going to say because I would never dream to do that. But he's going to talk about private equity and what he's seeing is happening in the field. Deidre is amazing. She's an SLP BCBA. She's one of our unicorns in the field. She's going to be talking about issues around what's happening within the field across the board on numerous things, staffing and speech and insurances and that nature. We got Dr. Ross and Dr. Shingler. Both are unique in their own rights for what they're doing with the development over, like Dr. Shingler, is doing development, and he's done a whole bunch of things in that areas, but he's going to be talking about issues of what's happening on that side of how we're missing a lot of the issues with staffing and training and what's happening there. And then we also have Dr. Ross, who's coming in and talking about social media and how social media is really causing a new situation where we're having to deal with all these outside sources that don't really have anything based in science and how it's causing conflict within the field for us. So really, we're kind of hitting it on three different spectrums of money, staffing and training, the BCBAs, and the social media. And so all three of them are icons in the field, as you know, and have been around for a long time, and they're going to address some of these issues. And probably they're the only four who really could address these issues because they have such stature that they can't be harmed by talking about these issues. Because I do think that there's a lot of fear in the field also to talk about some of this because there's a lot of pushback. So I'm really excited to have them. And I think everyone, whether you see it live or you see it in a tape video, I hope you take time to watch those four. I think they're bringing some really interesting information to the table.
Well, and I can pretty much guarantee that it will certainly, that conversation will be talked about, especially after this last year that we had, which we're not going to delve into, but there's lots to talk about. There will be conversations about that. You also have a panel, and we've got a flyer for it about assent. Ooh, is this a hot button topic? Mm-hmm. For a lot of people. So I love the question. Can assent be effectively and appropriately applied to all children? So you've got a pretty great lineup there. Talk to me a little bit about your feelings about assent. And when I said it's a hot button issue, I don't know the face that you made, whether you're like, is it, or what was the face that you made? What was your thought process?
Oh, I think assent is is causing friendships. I mean, I think it's so divisive. I think it's breaking friendships. I think it's causing so much. It's really a big issue right now in ABA. And it makes me sad. I'll be truthful with you. When I started this conference, I had no idea how deeply rooted some of these problems were. I had no idea how many lawsuits were going on. I mean, there's so many going back and forth. And there's so much anger and there's so much just divisiveness on this issue. And I just was shocked when I started. I had no idea.
Because you're a reasonable person, Jennifer, and so it would shock you. And I think that's the truth in the law. Because on the very basic level, we should be having conversations about assent, but we should be having intelligent, reasonable conversations about it. And a lot of people I find are very, in the field of ABA, are very black and white thinkers, and outside of ABA, a lot of black and white thinkers. And so understanding gray area is really hard for a lot of people. But anyway, I interrupted you. You go ahead.
Oh, no, I think you're correct. I think the nuances of this is the important part. But I think at the end of the day, when this is all said and done, we have to get along. We all have to work together in the field. And that's the part that I whenever I listen to some of this stuff that's really inflammatory, I always say, what is the end result going to be? I mean, how are we going to mend fences here? Because we all have to work together because we all bring such a uniqueness to the field. And our views are and our and our experiences and our abilities are what make this field grow and develop. So this division is not going to serve us in the long run. And I just don't know. Like I said, I was shocked, and I have strong opinions, but like even in my company, was very clear in my company. Like I had BCBAs who had vastly different views than my own, and when I would go out and I would take intakes with my families, I would look at them and say, you know what, you would fit really well with Emily. You're going to fit really well with Cobb, or you're going to fit really well with Christina, because I could tell by the family dynamics, the culture, the way that they parent, everything about them would fit with that person. And these are people who had vastly different views from each other. I mean, we had about 25 BCBAs on staff, and every single one of them brought their uniqueness. And so I don't understand why you cannot be different and still respect each other, because I did that within my own company. Because every child who comes into the table, everyone who works has a different approach to life, and not one way is going to work for everyone. And it's not even going to work probably for a good portion of them. And so I don't understand it. I do live in a world that is very divided, because I have a home in Boise, Idaho, which is one of the reddest states in the country. I also lived and worked and have a home in Seattle and Portland, which is some of the liberal parts of the country. So I guess I grew up and I've always been comfortable with people having very different views of me. And I've always worked and and I've had friendships. So I don't understand why we can't do that in the field of ABA. And that's why this conference is so important, is because we've got to start. We got to start, because you cannot have empathy. You cannot understand. You cannot grow, and you can't identify with people if you can't even hear them. And that is, and the other part of it is that I think parents are getting a perspective like there's only one way to do something, when in reality, there's multiple ways, and there's a whole spectrum. I mean, from the far left, and then everything in between. And parents cannot be an advocate. They cannot actually be making informed consent themselves if they don't know the options. So this is why this conference is important for parents also, is because they get to see they're going to see on display all the different views that are occurring right now in assent. Because if you look at the panel, there are some people who are on the very far one side who are like, assent doesn't work, to the other people who are like, assent is the only way to do it. And then there's everything in between. So a parent can see, and I think parents can then choose and say, you know what, I think this works for my family to this level or not. And it makes it more, makes parents more an advocate in the situation. Right now, I don't think parents have the tools to be advocates, because they're not getting the viewpoints from all good sources. I don't know that necessarily we want people on the internet, because I think the internet is creating part of this problem, but now they have a place to go. They can go to CPABA and they can watch these panels and say, you know what, I don't know if I agree with A, B, but I do definitely agree with D and C, and I think I like this. And they can then push their BCBAs and try to structure the treatment to match more of who they are as a family.
I also want to say too, because there's another part of this conversation, which is the self-advocates talking about assent. And I just want to say, if people have questions about that, I think one of the moments I am the most proud of, earlier this year, we did an interview with Shane Neumeister. I think that's what their name is, Neumeister. A brilliant self-advocate, attorney. And I thought, as a parent, am I going to be able to find common ground with them about and assent came up, and we talked about assent. And I think it's a perfect example of how we can communicate and define, what do I mean by assent and what do you mean by assent? And we found we were in the same place. We found that we were totally in the same place, which is a lot of gray area. It's not a hard and fast this or a hard and fast that, but I was like, oh, and they were like, oh, we're in the same place. Who would have thought? And I think everybody can get there. If a parent and a self-advocate can get there, I think you as an industry can get there. So I'm proud of you for taking it on. And I believe you can get there. I hope and pray that you can get there, because our kids need you. That's the long and the short of it. And I hope you take that back to them. Our kids need you. You have expertise. We need you. Our kids need you. So I kind of want to say to everybody, get that together.
Yes. Well, I mean, think about it as a country. This as a country, we we cannot live in our isolated little worlds. We have to work together. And if you can't have your view, you got to have some type of compromise, and you've got to be able to work with the people that you don't agree with. I mean, that is the beauty of what makes America beautiful, is our diversity. And we can't be afraid to be uncomfortable. We can't be afraid to be in situations where we don't necessarily agree. We need to be able to do it. And the only way we can do that is through respect and through having empathy and trying to understand each other. And what's beautiful about this is that if we as BCBAs in the industry can do it, and we can get parents to do it, and we can get self-advocates to do it, we are actually can become a model for what our country needs to do, because our country, and we can start teaching our younger generation how to interact, because you're never going to be in a school system. If you believe in public education, the beauty of it, it brings everyone to the same place, and you all work within the same environment. That's why public education, beyond all other issues, that is what makes it so beautiful, and what has bonded our country is that everyone goes to the same school. And therefore we all have to work together. And that's what so for me, I have a background in education. Obviously I did curriculum writing, and I think I understood the beauty of school, and that's kind of what I'm creating with CPABA. We're creating a school that makes everybody come and play nice in the sandbox.
Well, and I definitely want them to play nice in the sandbox, but I do also think that a guiding principle is that every time that there's a question, they should think, what is right for this individual? Yep. Not what's right for the whole industry, or what does it say? And I love the Cooper book as well, but and I want you guys to stay evidence-based, because you have evidence-based. But if you're applying that through the idea of what does this individual need, I think we'll all get there in the wash.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
So this conference, again, you want to register for it. You want to buy your ticket. If you're a parent, it's $39.99, plus you get the videos for 6 months. I mean, come on, you guys. So you should register. Great conference. You pick which ones you want to watch, and then go back later and watch the other ones. If there are BCBAs who watch the show, how much is it for them? Because they're going to be getting CEU.
Yes, it's $199 for the BCBAs, and they get 88 CEU credits. So basically, if over 6 months, so they can pretty much get their recertification done. Also, what is really important for the BCBAs, and even for the parents, maybe it's not as much for the parents, but definitely for the BCBAs, is that in a lot of these talks, especially like ones I'm doing, I'm actually giving the BCBAs the PowerPoints and the training programs to actually implement. So for example, I'm doing one on timeout, and it's for children who have had in a preschool situation who are hitting. How do you deal with that? And overcome that issue with a timeout procedure in place. And so I'm not only providing them the guidance on how to do it, the procedures on how to do it, I'm providing them the audit sheets on how to audit the session notes and audit the BTs. I'm also providing them the training for the BTs and the parents. So basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to give them a full program on timeout, so that when they go back, they can use this, and it helps give them a template on when you're creating a program. You have to bring the parents in, you have to bring the teachers in, you have to bring in all the caregivers who are involved, you have to bring in how are you going to train, how are you going to check for integrity, how are you going to make sure that you're making progress, how do you generalize this. So a lot of the events are going to have all of those materials are going to be provided when we're talking about specific things, so that the BCBAs can actually have these materials to modify them and use them in their own system, but also give them a framework of what they should be creating when they're creating their own programs. Because that was one of the issues that we've seen, is that a lot of the BCBAs don't know, like they're not even trained, they're not preparing for, say, generalization. They're not preparing for how they're going to teach. Like sometimes I'll say to them, are you going to teach this? What's the actual teaching method inside of this? And they'll say reinforcement. And I'm like, reinforcement is not a teaching method. That's a way to increase or decrease a behavior. How do you actually plan to create the behavior? And so what this is going to do, some of these formats that we're giving are going to help give the BCBAs a chance to actually see what a really good program written out is done, and also give them like the policies and procedures around those programs. So, and the insurance, like how do you fight insurance? Like how do you, if I'm going to do something, like I need so many treatment hours and insurance is denying me, here are the research that backs up what you're trying to do. So, that's all going to be provided to this to the BCBAs also. And parents, of course, all parents will get that information too. But I don't know if auditing sheets are going to be important to the parents, but it might be. So.
Okay. Super duper cool. So check that out, you guys. We're almost out of time already, and I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about your book series. So let's talk about your book series. You've got one of them there. Hold it up for us so that we can all see. It's the go back a little bit. It's out of focus. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, the essential second step. But this is a series, so I assume there's the essential first step as well.
Yep. And then we had the first one, the first step right here.
Okay. So tell us about these books and who they're for.
So these books are for, I wrote them in a language so that everyone can use them, parents, BCBAs, and BTs. They were designed for the BCBA. Basically, when I was working, I noticed a lot of my BCBAs did not understand clinical practice. We don't teach BCBAs how to deal inside the clinical practice. And
why? Why don't we? I'm sorry.
I do not know. 85% of all BCBAs go into therapy, and I do not know why our BCBA programs are not addressing this. I do not get it.
Okay.
So I'm with you on it. I'm waiting for it to happen, because even in psychology, you have a clinical side of psychology, and then you have the educational academic side of it. And we are not doing that.
Okay.
So these books, the first book, and people think I'm crazy, like, how did you write 500 pages on session notes? And then the second book is on assessment and treatment plans. Again, it was like 580 pages. And then the third book is on interventions. And then we have staff training. So they're like big, thick books. They'll put you to sleep. But the reason why they're so big is because there's so many little aspects that are different when you're talking about clinical practice. Like in session notes, how do you use session notes? Are often seen as a way just to get through documentation for the insurance, but in reality, session notes are a way for the BT, the families, to communicate with the BCBAs who are not on site all the time. And we talk about how to use the session note to monitor and audit, and how to use that as a form of what we call it, quality of care checks. And we talk about the assessment and the treatment plans. How do you know for sure that you're getting the right assessments, you're getting the right treatment plans written down? How are the goals carrying through all the way through the therapy? Because often we'll see treatment plans that have goals over here, and then we're looking and we're going like, but they're not being done in therapy. And so the first two books that we showed you that are out, the other ones are coming out in the next 6 months. About every 6 to 8 months, a new one comes out. But the first two are talking about the documentation piece. And one of the things that I've been advocating for a long time is trying to standardize documentation. And a lot of people perceive this as standardization of treatment. That is not what this is. What it is a standard of documentation, because what it does is it provides young BCBAs a framework to make sure that they're covering all of their bases and they're doing what they should be doing. It also makes sure that they're attending to the things they should be attending to. So for example, like in the assessment book, it talks them through what type of assessment they should be using, why they should be using it, how it should carry through to their session notes, into their therapy, how it should be affecting their goals. And so what it's basically doing is providing the standardization of documentation so that as me as a BCBA who's at a more experienced level, if I were supervising, say, 10 BCBAs, I would be able to go through their treatment plans, go through their assessments, and be able to look at them and see where there's some red flags, like where there might have been issues. Right now, a lot of experienced BCBAs are overloaded because they almost have to be on the case in order to make sure that what they're seeing in the treatment plans are correct, because a lot of times the assessments aren't, I don't want to use the word correct, but let's say they're not accurate for what they needed to be. And the BCBA who was conducting it didn't know, because again, if the BCBA is trained under one type of system, they don't understand all the different things that are available to them. They don't know the tools. So, and they don't even know how to recognize the signs that they need a different tool. So that's why the standardization documentation is doing a lot what years ago in the hospital systems and in our therapy systems, what it did, it provided a framework to help make sure that the BCBAs are doing what they should be doing. And it provided a framework to make sure that they're conducting the assessments and that they're aware. It's kind of like call it bumpers on the side to keep everybody on the lane. And when a BCBA hits something inside, like say assessment or treatment plan, that's kind of falling outside of the norm, that's when they should then know, oh, I need to talk to a senior BCBA. I need to get something. I need more guidance here. And a lot of times, I don't even think BCBAs even know that they're operating on in a situation where they need extra guidance, because they don't know based on what they've done in the past. And so these two books that are out currently are basically giving all this clinical information to the BCBAs. It's walking them through their financial obligations, their legal obligations, the state requirements, our board requirements, insurance requirements, but it's also walking them through how to do good quality care, and how to document it. And it's providing them with resources to train and audit their own work to make sure that they're getting quality care to each patient.
So let me ask you something. And you may not be the best person to ask this, but I'm thinking this would be a great holiday gift to give your BCBA.
Absolutely. This will make their life so much easier. Yes.
Well, I mean, are they going to get offended and feel like we think we don't know what they're doing? Or are they going to be like, oh, I want, this is great. I know the information is what they need. But do you think BCBAs, their ego is okay enough for us to give those as a gift?
I think that every BCBA will literally give you a kiss after they use the book. I think big companies should buy them for all their BCBAs, because I keep hearing when I get asked to audit companies and go in and they say, can you help us with this? And I go in and I look at the treatment plan and I'm going like, there's just so many things missing and there's so many areas. And I'm like, just give them the book and tell them to follow the book, because I really believe BCBAs are in this they're doing their best. And yes. I feel like there's so many things are working against the BCBAs right now that I don't understand. And this is one of them. I mean, they're not trained. I mean, that is one of the biggest things. They're not trained on any of this, and they just get dropped into a company. And depending on how good that company is or how good whatever resources they have, depends on what they do. I was shocked when I had a BCBA who I use the patent format sometimes and for VB-MAP, and she saw it because I give it to parents, and it's a way for me to try to parents who really want to know what's going on and want to see the progress and everything. So I give it to them. And she saw it and she was like all excited. She's like, this is really cool, Jen. You should like copyright this and you should like totally sell this. And I looked at her and I go, this is the VB-MAP, honey. And she's like, I've heard of that. And I was like, I sat there and I went, how do you have your BCBA license and you've been practicing for 6 months and you've never in all of your time seen a VB-MAP? And she hadn't.
Wow.
And I was just in shock. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I can tell you stories like that. And I'm like, how, like I had a mentor, I'm mentoring. I love her. She's amazing. She's actually on the book with us. She's probably one of the best I've seen for young people her application of interventions is amazing. But we were talking and she was asking me for some help on a client. And I kept saying, well, just go get the work in progress. That will help you. And she thought I was telling her just work in progress. Like it'll just take time. You'll get through it. And then one day I said, well, did your BT not understand the program? And she's like, what program did you give me, Jen? And I'm like, the work in progress. And she's like, what are you talking about? And then I gave her the book and she says, oh my gosh, I've never seen this. And I'm like,
I don't know which book you're talking about. I've never heard of the work in progress.
Work in progress. Yeah, it's a book. It's a great book. New BCBA should use it. It's a great book. It's out of UCLA. It's a great book. But I was in shock. By the way, we are presenting on the event. We're actually going to have one for new BCBAs because I was shocked that BCBAs had never seen it. And I was like, this book saved me my first year out because it developmentally, one of the biggest problems BCBAs have is they have no developmental background. We don't require it, which we should. I have it personally. Other people who are more experienced have it, but they, as an average 25-year-old BCBA, they have no developmental background, which is crazy because when you're writing curriculum and writing programming for a 3-year-old, you need to have a background in development. Work in progress is a very simple way. It takes you through a systematic way of staying, so you stay within developmentally appropriate protocols. So it's very simple. You can't mess it up. It's like one of the simplest books I've ever used, methodology. It's like the foundation for a lot of things. But having said that, it was shocking to me that these people did not know this stuff. And that's where, like with my books, I'm just saying, here are the developmental assessments. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know that this was a developmental assessment? And like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, this is norm reference. And they don't even know what norm reference means. And I'm like, okay. So the book walks them through all of this.
I have a degree and a master's degree in theater, and I had to take early childhood development. How can somebody have a BCBA and never have to have taken that?
You asked an amazing question. I have really have an issue with this. And I'm telling you that it also undermines our profession because I have friends who are doctors. I came out of the hospital system. So that's where I'm connected. Most of the doctors, especially pediatric doctors I work with, are like, how is it possible that this is not a requirement? And I'm like, it's not a requirement. And I've always advocated that we need to have a special certification for autism and for young early EIBI programming for under the board, but that's a different thing. But you are right on the money with that. How is it that a person who can do developmental programming and not have a developmental background? And that is why we're seeing, I think, so many issues in the field, because people do not know this stuff. And that's partially why, like I said, I wrote the book and I said, here is how assessments work. And this is what a focus assessment is and a comprehensive assessment. I'm surprised how many don't even know that basic division, right? And then I say, here are the different assessments and here how these assessments are used to impact what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to measure social skills, how are you doing that with this assessment? These two don't have anything to do with each other. And yet you'll see it all the time. And the reason why they do it is not because the BCBA doesn't want to do a great job. It's because the company they're at only gives you this many options, or the insurance company only allows this. And so basically, because these BCBAs have not been trained in the way that we would hope they be trained, they don't know to push back. They don't know to push back against the company. They don't know and parents don't know to push back. And that's why with the books, and even with this conference, I'm trying to give this information so that as a parent, you can say, nope, I need more than that assessment. I need to have this assessment. My child is showing this type of development. I need to have this type of assessment. They now have some resources to go to that's in plain English that says, hey, if we're doing a developmental assessment, here are the ones you probably should be considering. You know what I'm trying to say?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And here's the thing unfortunately we're out of time because that flew by, Jennifer. But here's what I want to say is that sometimes when I see something that I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much that needs to be done. And I start to spin a little bit and I get overwhelmed. And then I have to take a breath and remind myself that smarter minds are working on it. And that's you, Jennifer. You're working on this and you're doing this conference. And I'm grateful that you are, because heaven knows we need this help. And so I just want to encourage people, support this conference. If you're not going, let other people know about it. Go and visit their Facebook site, share, let people know, let the team that you're working with know about it so that if they want to go, that they can go. The $199 in the realm of things when they have to do their CEUs is not much to them. And $39.99, I know for some of you that's a stretch, but it's good value because you'll have the recordings for 6 months. You're doing a good thing, Jennifer, and I really appreciate you coming and sharing about it, because this is very much needed. And knowing that you're working on it, we lost her for a second. Knowing that you're working on it will allow me to sleep tonight, because so many of the things you said, I'm like, somebody has to do something. Really quickly, and then we have to go. I got invited by a parent to come, and because she was meeting with her ABA provider, I didn't know any of them. They didn't know me. And she was having a little bit of a disconnect. She said, will you just come with me? And I'm not going to say who the ABA provider is, but at this meeting, and there were three BCBAs at a meeting with this parent who has a 4-year-old. She's been trying to get services for him since he was 3. And the recommended number of hours was 10 hours when he was 3. Thank you for that reaction. And I had said to her, protest that, but now we're a year later, and I thought this should be the first topic of conversation that, where are you ramping up? And I said, so what, talk to us about the 10-hour thing. And a BCBA sat there and said, yeah, no, that's the recommendation. And I said, can you tell me what it's based on? And she said, well, that's what science has proven to be effective for a 4-year-old. And I said, no. And she looked at me and she said, what? And I said, no, I know that. And you know that. I would love to ask you for a study, but I already know that study doesn't exist. So no. So what do you, and she was like, well, my understanding is that, and I said, you're a BCBA, your understanding of what? And I just said, no. and I couldn't come up with any other words. I was like, what universe have I fallen into which 3 BCBAs are going to sit there and boldface say to me and this parent that 10 hours for a 4-year-old has been found to be effective?
I think what's really sad is, I'm going to tell you, is I would say probably 50% of the population right now in BCBA work would say that, because they have been trained incorrectly. And that 10 hours is coming from insurance, and it's coming from a whole bunch of other sources, and it has taken hold inside of a lot of BCBAs. And I agree with you. Like, that is absolutely shocking. There's no research to support that. And you are absolutely correct. And I'm so glad you were there with that parent, because you would be surprised how many times I've gone in and consult, and I have seen 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds who are just diagnosed are getting 10 hours of work. And I'm like, this is crazy, you guys. This is crazy.
Well, like I said, I'm going to be able to sleep tonight knowing that you're working on it. And please let me know how I can support you, because I think that it's critical and important. And you know,
come and be a speaker, come and be a moderator, and help moderate everybody keep friendly, keep everybody in a happy place.
Yeah, you send me times and dates, and I will show up in any way that I can, because what you're doing is important. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your new best friend. I'm sending you a hug. And thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us to talk about this, because it's vital. It's important.
Thank you so much.
You have a good rest of your day. For all of you, we've gone over because we needed to, because I get, you know how I get. But thrilled that we had the time to talk about this, because it's critical stuff. So we're back on Monday. I can't remember. All thought has left my mind about who we're having on Monday, but we've got great guests that are coming up. We keep rescheduling Dr. Jed Baker, but he's coming up sometime in the next 2 weeks. We've rescheduled him again. But some amazing shows. If you have not checked out some of the shows that we've done recently, listen, I know we took time off in August, but I mean, we just did an amazing interview with the Bondies. Whoo, you got to watch that. Right? We've done some pretty incredible stuff lately, and we've got some incredible shows coming up. So stay tuned. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.